The rise of the Ottoman Empire. I'm not a historian, let's do some history. The Ottoman Empire has always been so fascinating, at least if you're a nerd for empires like me, just because of how good an example it is of the life cycle of an empire. Although there's dispute about where exactly the stages in the empire's life cycle begin and end, the stages themselves are mostly agreed upon. These stages are of course the rise, the stagnation, and finally the decline. And as if to make it easier to depict in a YouTube video, these stages can be pretty accurately examined on a map of Ottoman borders. We can see them expand quickly initially, stagnate, and then finally recede. In this video, we'll be looking at the rise of the Ottomans as depicted in the work penned by Hilal Analçuk, a prominent historian in the research of Ottoman history. This will be supplemented by works contributed to the Encyclopedia Britannica by the likes of Tony Bunting, Miles Hudson, Malcolm Edward Yap, and Stamford J. Shaw. At the turn of the 14th century, the Ottoman polity began as a small principality on the frontiers of the Islamic world. But within 2.5 centuries, it stood among the world's great powers under Suleiman the Magnificent. The dynasty takes its name from Osman and his frontline fighters active in northwestern Anatolia in the early 1300s. By Osman's son Orhan's reign, the Ottomans had moved from raiding to rule. They captured Bursa and made it an early centre of power, and subsequently took Nicaea and Nicomedia. Institutional signals followed. Orhan minted coins at Bursa and established a madrasa in Nicaea in 1331. This is evidence of an early Ottoman administrative and scholarly apparatus. The mid-14th century pivot was European. As Hilal Analçuk stresses, the crucial event in Ottoman history was gaining a strong foothold in the Balkans after 1352. This foothold enabled sustained operations in Thrace and beyond. From these bridgeheads, Ottoman power radiated through the Balkans across the later 14th century, consolidating a transcontinental state. By the 1390s, the empire stretched from the Danube to the Euphrates under Bayezid I, also known as the Thunderbolt, who pressed both European and Anatolian fronts. Here, Analçuk notes, at Nicopolis in 1396, he routed a crusader army of Europe's proudest knights. Though it would not be the last crusade against them, Nicopolis was a devastating blow to European efforts to slow the Ottoman expansion. In 1402, however, Bayezid suffered a shattering defeat at the hands of Timur, the leader of the Timurids, also known as Tamerlane. It was a shocking defeat at the Battle of Ankara, a reverse that Tony Bunting sums up as one that came close to destroying the Ottoman Empire. The ensuing interregnum saw Bayezid's sons contest the throne until the dynasty reunited under Mehmed I, who would later defeat a crusader army at the Battle of Varna. The Battle of Varna is widely recognised as a decisive Ottoman victory that ended major crusading efforts to halt their Balkan expansion. The restoration set the stage for Mehmed II, also known as Mehmed the Conqueror for reasons that will become obvious in a moment. In 1453, after a 55-day siege employing land and sea operations and heavy cannon, the Ottomans captured Constantinople on the 29th of May, ending the Byzantine Empire and opening the path for deeper European expansion. Under Selim I, also known as Selim the Grim, the state transformed again. In a pair of campaigns, he defeated the Mamluks at Marsabik and Ridinaya, thus bringing Syria, Egypt and Palestine under Ottoman rule. These conquests solidified the empire as the leading power in the Islamic world. And after dragging the Abbasid Caliph to Constantinople, forcing him to renounce his claim, the Ottoman Empire commanded the title of the Islamic Caliphate with the Sultan as its Caliph. Okay, wow, so the achievements by the Ottomans up until this point would undoubtedly go down in history as being worth recognition. I wouldn't blame you for thinking stagnation starts here, and if it was another empire, that might be the case. But the Ottoman Empire lasted for over 600 years, making it one of the longest lasting empires in history. Now we're going to meet the man who's going to make sure that'll happen. Suleiman I is known by many names. The Magnificent and the Lawgiver are just a few among them, so you could probably guess this guy's a pretty big deal when it comes to Ottoman history. Suleiman drove the empire to its peak through institutional improvements, legislation and conquest. Early in his reign he took Belgrade and Rhodes, at Mohacs he effectively brought all of Hungary under his rule, and through the appointment of Hederdin, also known as Barbarossa, Ottoman naval power grew as well. The fleet defeated a Holy League at Preveza, securing effective Ottoman supremacy in the Eastern Mediterranean for decades. In 1529 he commenced the First Siege of Vienna, bringing the reality of Ottoman incursion into Central Europe. Although unsuccessful at Vienna, it signalled how far he had brought the House of Osman. Across the mid-16th century, Ottoman land and sea power confronted composite Habsburg-Venetian coalitions from Hungary to the Ionian. These pressures climaxed in 1571 when the Holy League assembled a grand fleet to meet the Ottomans near the Gulf of Patras. At Lepanto, the Holy League under Don John of Austria met the Ottoman fleet commanded by Muzaffar Ali Pasha. Britannica characterises the outcome as the first significant victory for a Christian naval force over a Turkish fleet. The battle unfolded off southwestern Greece. It grew out of a promising Ottoman campaign against Cyprus and ended in what would soon be realised as the limit of Ottoman expansion. Between 1299 and 1571, the Ottomans evolved from a frontier beylik to a transcontinental empire, controlling from Yemen to Hungary and from Algeria to Iran. The Ottomans went from humble beginnings to crossing into Europe, weathering crisis after Ankara, conquering Constantinople, and dominating the eastern Mediterranean until it was finally checked at Lepanto. And unfortunately for the Ottomans, the next stage in the empire's life cycle was stagnation, which we'll get to in a later video. Thanks for listening to me yap about Ottoman history. In the future, I plan to make a video about reasons for Ottoman success, like the Janissaries or the structure of the Ottoman government. If you have any ideas for a video you want to see in the future, please let me know down in the comments. And in the meantime, I'm not a historian. I'll see you later.